What is up, guys? I'm the Super Duper Booster, and this is a Smash Brothers discussion video. It's nice to finally be on YouTube, first of all. I've had this channel for quite a while. I've wanted to do a video kind of series on Smash Brothers for a while. I've seen, that's a very popular thing, I know, so I'm probably not going to get too much attention, but, it's always fun to be part of the community, and I've always wanted to do a bit of a discussion on this thing. So yeah, nice to meet you guys. If you stumble upon this video, please like, share, and subscribe if you can. But today we are going to be talking about Resident Evil. Just kind of getting into it right now. But it's one franchise that I have been very surprised not a lot of people have been talking about, and there's good reason for that. I understand. In general, there's just a lot of leaks that have been going around. Even just today, the leak on Crash Bandicoot just came out. And on top of that, you just have the general, ever since the announcement of more characters coming, just a lot of people pushing for who they want. There's a lot of characters out there, so it's totally understandable. I totally get it. I'm not upset or mad that Resident Evil isn't being talked about a lot. I think it's actually kind of I think it's pretty cool actually that I possibly can be the person to start up discussion on this franchise and get people to be like, I never thought about that, but when you put it like that, so that's something I've always kind of been interested in, infatuated with. So, with that, we are going to start on the discussion on Resident Evil and the possibility of Leon S. Kennedy, Claire Redfield, or Jill Valentine getting in as not just the fifth, but, if somebody else takes the fifth, somebody in the next pass. So with that, let's begin. So before we get into my points about how Resident Evil has a good shot at getting into Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, we actually need to go back and actually talk about what Resident Evil is first before we do any of that. So what is Resident Evil? So Resident Evil is a Capcom franchise. It is been one of Capcom's longest running, only I believe before Mega Man and Street Fighter. I think those are the two older franchises of Capcom's. However, despite not being the oldest of their franchises, Resident Evil has actually become one of, if not their most popular series to date. Actually, looking it up right now, it looks like, Resident Evil is their most popular. They currently, worldwide as of June, have 92 million copies sold worldwide. Right behind them, they have Monster Hunter, which has 55 million, and then you have Street Fighter with 43 million, and Mega Man with 35 million units sold. So, it definitely is, of their franchises, their most successful. And especially for a survival horror franchise, that's really good. It's what popularized the survival horror genre. It's not what started it, mind you. There were a couple games before that actually started survival horror, but in terms of popularizing it to the mainstream media and, kind of kickstarting a bunch of trends and things that stuck with survival horror, Resident Evil was the one that started it all. And basically, not started, but kicked it off. It has over 100 units, 100 titles under its belt. And before you go, what the fuck, Resident Evil has 100 games? No. Let's make that a little bit clear. Resident Evil doesn't have 100 different games. You have to keep in mind that Capcom is pretty well known for re-releasing their games a lot. You look at Street Fighter. Street Fighter's used the most notorious. It's been sold over, I believe, resold 10 times over. And that's just in terms of how many different editions of the game there are, I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong on them having 10. It's probably a little bit less than that, but they have resold on their platforms multiple times. Street Fighter 2 a lot, and Resident Evil is not exempt from that. Resident Evil 1, the first one, the original, has been re-released dozens of times on dozens of platforms. So whenever, you see a franchise has like this many copies, like Resident Evil or Street Fighter, because I think Street Fighter has like over 90. Just keep that in mind, that it's not actually unique different games. They're usually re-releases that they add and account for when they're creating that number. But yeah, it's Capcom's most profitable franchise currently at the moment, with a pretty large gap between the next successful franchise, again, being Monster Hunter. And for a franchise that wasn't the original, again, that's pretty substantial. So yeah, Resident Evil definitely has made its mark in gaming as a legacy franchise. So currently at the moment, in terms of third parties, I believe we just have 4. I think we have Microsoft, Square Enix, actually no, we have 5. Microsoft, Square Enix, Konami, Capcom, and Sega. I think that's all at the moment. We're going to be focusing right now on Smash 4 and what we got in Smash 4. And I'll get to why in a second. But I believe we only just had 3. We had Capcom, Sega, and Square Enix. We had, for the DLC, we had Ryu for Capcom, we had for Sega, Bayonetta, and for Square Enix, we had Cloud. Now, why am I saying this? Looking at the DLC that we got currently for Smash Ultimate, we've already gotten Square Enix, and we also got Sega in the form of Joker and Hero. It's kind of strange when you look at Capcom, though. Capcom's in this weird spot at the moment because they did get a new rep for Smash. It was in the base, and it was in the form of Ken. Now, initially, I was under the assumption of, that's just their rep. After thinking it over a little bit, though, I find that a little bit weird for a couple of reasons. Mainly just because of the fact that it's just a little bit off when you look at the fact that Square Enix and Sega got 2 completely unique characters in the form of their DLC from new franchises. Capcom arguably has probably had the best relationship to Nintendo as of late compared to the others, and it's just a little weird to me that they got Ken, who's an Echo, from an already existing franchise in Smash Brothers, when everybody else got totally new characters from totally new universes. And that's just a little bit strange to me. And it's why I'm thinking that I'm pretty sure that we're getting Capcom for DLC. If it's not going to be the 5th character, it's almost likely going to be in the next pack. Because, again, I just find that really weird that Capcom is being very humble by just being okay with. I would find that a little bit weird that they would be that humble and be like, oh yeah, we're cool with just Ken. We're cool with a semi-Echo. I feel like Capcom would probably want their own character, a new character from a new universe, just like the other third parties. But I could be wrong on there. That could just be the deal, but it's just a little bit off to me that's kind of what they settled with just having Ken. And nothing against Ken, because I like Ken, but again, as their, if that's this is it, this is our new rep for Smash Bros. Ultimate, yeah, it's a little bit strange. This isn't brought up much, but I figured I'd still bring it up because I actually think it's a really interesting point. But during E3, we got a really weird ad from Nintendo. So we ended up getting a Resident Evil trailer, and not just a really quick trailer, not just a really quick trailer, but we actually got like a full blown Nintendo produced kind of like mini commercial, like not just a mini commercial, but like a commercial for Resident Evil. You know, had actors, it had a full location, you know, where it was shot at, and it basically was like a full like 2-3 minutes. And the weird thing is, like, what's weird about this is the fact that no other company, no other third party company, during the Switch Direct in which this was happening, had gotten similar attention. Capcom was the only one to get, and specifically Resident Evil was the only thing to get this kind of special treatment. I mean, they had their montage trailer where they showed all the Switch games, but Resident Evil wasn't a part of that, and, you know, that's all the other third-party games coming to the Switch got. I mean, even The Witcher was a part of just the montage trailer. Resident Evil specifically got its own thing, which was a little bit strange. Nintendo hasn't really been one to do kind of flashy, you know, ads like that before. But here we are with Resident Evil, and we got like a full ad where these kids were walking around a haunted mansion, and like spooky stuff was happening, and then suddenly they're playing the games and advertising the games on the Switch, and going through them, and yeah, no, it was weird. I mean, it was an interesting, funny kind of trailer, I guess, but yeah, in regards to, you know, all the other companies and marketing wise, it's clear that Nintendo was giving special treatment to Resident Evil. You know, I don't think they just decided to do that for no reason. It comes off more like, you know, they just talked about something with Capcom to garner interest in wanting to promote differently compared to the other third parties, Resident Evil in specific. Because the only other time I can recall where something similar happened, where they were advertising and pushing a game that much, was with not Monster Hunter, but Dragon Quest. And Dragon Quest, soon after all that pushing, had gotten announced for Smash. So it's not the same thing, but it's something to consider when looking at this commercial that Nintendo, you know, just out of nowhere, just produced and financed and created for E3, of all places. Just a really quick one. This probably isn't gonna be a long point, but I figure I'd just go into it. That, yeah, there are a couple HD collections that are both coming and on the Switch at the moment. Just to really just quickly name drop them. I know that Nintendo has the Revelations games on the Switch. I'm pretty sure there's a collection pack for that. There's the Origins collection, which comes with, Resident Evil 1 and I think 0, and I think it's just those two. And then coming later, or it's already out, I'm not sure. I'll have to check in when they come out, but Resident Evil 4, 5, and 6 is going to be the last collection, and I think it's just called the Triple Pack. So there's definitely is a large presence now of Resident Evil games on the Switch, so, that's just a point to add on to, Resident Evil's possibility of being in Smash. There is that affiliation with Nintendo. I mean, they already had an affiliation with Nintendo way before this, but, having their games on the Switch is just kind of that extra little step. Now, Resident Evil has been kind of silent for a little bit. Not in the way that it's like it's just been quiet for years or anything like that, no. But Resident Evil nothing really has been talked about lately. The company hasn't really been vocal about Resident Evil. despite the fact that Resident Evil 2 remake made a bunch of money and was one of their most successful. I think it's their most successful Resident Evil title. Despite all that, they were pretty silent up until recently, when they announced a collaboration between Monster Hunter World and Resident Evil. And the interesting thing is, it's a full-on pack in which, Resident Evil, obviously collaborates with Monster Hunter. Leon and Claire, Mr. X, and a bunch of zombies are in this and playable, and it's weird to say the least. It's a weird trailer. It was unexpected. Not a lot of people saw it coming. Just look at the reactions on YouTube. But yeah, no, it threw a lot of people off guard. And more to the point, it really does. It shows that, they're re-pushing it back in people's eyes. It's still relevant to people, and it's especially now relevant to people, Resident Evil, because it's now been pushed into the public because this is coming out. It doesn't come out until November, but it's being touted as a pretty big a pretty big pack that's going to have a bunch of content in it. So, just another little point that, of interest, that they are pushing it back in the public eye all of a sudden. So it certainly would be the best time if they were going to announce Resident Evil. Again, that's just a speculation thing at this point. This is more of a speculative point, but it just, to me, it would make sense. Now that they've kind of reminded people about Resident Evil 2 and people are talking about it again, it would just make sense just to put it in, just for the lulz, just to, not just for the lulz, but, just to announce maybe around the same time, they drop the DLC when it's for sale. They just also drop a trailer or announce something or tease something regarding Smash or their collaboration with Nintendo, because just a couple days before the DLC drops is when the Resident Evil HD collection for 4, 5, and 6 drops on the Switch. So, again, just something to keep in mind. Probably isn't going to happen, but, it probably doesn't mean much, but it is, if it ends up being announced, if Resident Evil does end up getting in, it definitely is a point in its favor, I feel. Should also be worth to note that since the DLC specifically is regarding Resident Evil 2, that just in my mind that would mean that Resident Evil 2 would probably be what Capcom's trying to promote right now. So again, if Smash is getting Resident Evil soon, whether it's the next DLC or the DLC after or whatever, it probably means that they're trying to, they'd probably want to go with Resident Evil 2 out of any other game out of the series, given the fact that it's their most successful and relevant. So a while back, the Smash speculator Papagenos actually talked to me on social media, on Twitter, about specifically this. And in a previous video, he brought up the fact that he knew a source that was talking about Resident Evil, and that specifically caught my attention. So I had basically asked him a little bit more about that, and basically he had cleared it up, stating that the source was referring to the fact that just to give some context on what he was talking about, the source he was talking to, which he believes is credible, was saying how Jill was possibly in talks with Nintendo for showing up in Smash, but possibly didn't fall through all the way. So the basic gist of it is Jill possibly was being talked to, Capcom was being talked to possibly for Jill, and that didn't work out. Now, that still is some interesting evidence if it's true, because that still does mean that Capcom was being talked to. And if Capcom was being talked to, it probably means that there's still a good chance that they're still getting a character. It just might not be Jill. My theory is, if indeed it's true that talks for Jill Valentine didn't go through all the way, and that fell flat, and that didn't get confirmed, that doesn't totally write off for me Resident Evil. In my mind, that could still mean that, they just didn't go with Jill, but there was another Resident Evil character that they wanted to pick, possibly like Leon or Claire, because of the fact that maybe Resident Evil 2's the more, current game that they want to advertise, or Resident Evil 3 remake is in the make, possibly, and this one's just a theory, but Resident Evil 3 remake could possibly be in the making, and they don't want to kind of show off a model similar to the Jill model that they would be using for 3 remake, something like that, but that's just a guess on my end. But I still think that, it's pretty good. It's pretty interesting, and something to keep in mind, that Resident Evil was being negotiated possibly with by Sakurai and Nintendo for this, and even if that didn't fall through for Jill or even Resident Evil, it still kind of leads to my idea that Capcom would still be getting something, because I just don't think that they'd go talk to them and it falls through Jill, and then suddenly they just walk away, not even talking about or discussing any other character. But, so, yeah, it's definitely very interesting, that tidbit that Papagino's had elaborated on with me about that. It's still interesting. I had asked him if, I had not asked him, but I did bring that up to him, that it's like, well, maybe it fell through for Jill, but maybe there's another character. I don't think he ever got back to me on that, but it's still, I still think that put some kind of stock in Resident Evil as a possibility, even if it's that specific information is deconfirming a Resident Evil character more than it is saying that character is happening. I still think that points that there's an interest, that Nintendo possibly has an interest, and that would line up with a lot of things that I said before about how they're now popularizing it again, Resident Evil 2 with the Monster Hunter DLC, and the fact that, Capcom hasn't really doesn't have a new franchise in via DLC yet compared to the other DLC, and the fact that Resident Evil 2 remake is just their most successful franchise. It just lines up with a lot of things, and that ad at E3 that they made, there's just a lot of interesting things that, if you consider this leaker or person that Papagino's was talking to, if he's credible, it puts a lot of things in perspective. Suddenly a lot of these things that I've talked about the fact that Resident Evil got that commercial at E3, Resident Evil's getting pushed back in public, spotlight again with the Monster Hunter crossover DLC stuff, the games now coming to the Switch suddenly. It just kind of, it makes a little bit more sense. It doesn't seem as strange and out there, all this stuff happening regarding Capcom, but again, we'll have to see. This is one of those things that we'll have to see, if there's any, if anything comes from this, and if the leaks currently are anything to go by, if Resident Evil were to get in, there's that possibility that that they're probably not going to be the next character, the 5th ending character for the past. My guess would be probably an early reveal for the next batch of characters, because again, I just feel like Capcom is kind of due for a rep of some sort, be it Resident Evil, Okami, Monster Hunter, you name it. I think that Capcom's going to get another character. Um, yeah. Alright, and that is everything that I have right now regarding my thoughts on Resident Evil, its chances, just the works. Um, Sorry about the rambling. This is, again, first video, and I'm doing it late because I'm smart. So, that's always a great idea to do your very first YouTube video late at night. But I had a good time. I had fun. It was great being able to speculate a character that I have wanted to talk about for a while. And I hope I did a decent job talking about them, if I made any sense at all. Thanks for taking the time if you gotten all the way this far into the video. If you liked it, or had thoughts, comment, if you want. And I don't want to be one of those people that's like, share, subscribe, hashtag Smash Bros. I don't want to be one of those kind of people, but, it is a Smash community, and things are always moving, so, if you liked it, or if you want to share and get Resident Evil talked about more, share the video. That would be a great thing. That would be great for me. It would be some great exposure. But I don't really know what else to say. I don't really know how to close out. But again, I think Resident Evil would be a great addition to Smash Bros. I think it has a lot going for it. I think there's a lot of things that it can add to the series of Smash Bros. I don't really think there's really many issues regarding getting it in. So yeah, I guess we'll just have to see what happens in the future with Capcom, Smash Bros, and just the game in general. But again, even if Resident Evil doesn't get in, I would love to see another Capcom rep in general. I would love to see Okami. I would love to see Devil May Cry, even Ace Attorney. Just surprise me. Just do something fun, That's the joy and wonder of Smash Bros, is being able to speculate. And yeah, but yeah, so again, this is the Super Duper Booster. And this has been my video on why I feel like Resident Evil has a decent shot at getting in Smash Bros. And I'm going to probably get some sleep now. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and y'all have a good night.